Ball game just ended, and now it's time for you to react. It's the Louisville basketball postgame show on Sports Talk 790. Now here's Nick Coffey.
That's right. Let's get it started, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Louisville basketball postgame show. The fancy voiceover guy was in fact correct, and this is Sports Talk 790 as we join you here at 11:15 on a Wednesday night as Louisville. They take another loss and another game that I just think is kind of weird as far as, how you react. I mean, are you surprised? Are you, look, you all will have the platform tonight and you can utilize it to share whatever you want when it comes to Louisville basketball. And hey, if we end up going in the direction of talking Louisville football, trust me, it's because there's good stuff going on there. Another steal for Jeff Brom in the portal from Ole Miss. We'll get to that later. I promise we'll at least spend some time on it. But again, Louisville, they fall tonight 86-70 to North Carolina on the road in a game that really right out of the jump, they got behind. I mean, they weren't getting completely hammered, but Carolina created themselves a decent little cushion early in the game. And then sure enough, they kept that throughout the first half. And then I think the lead got up to 20 whenever the second half started. And Louisville went on a crazy run. I think they made 9 of their first 10 shots in the second half and got it down to 5. And it kept it near between like 5 and 10. It felt like for maybe a segment or so. And then, Carolina went on another run and they win the game by 16 points. Another double-digit loss for Louisville. For those who care about this kind of stuff, they did cover the spread. They tipped off as 21-point underdogs, which is just crazy to say. But then again, when you come back down to reality and consider where we are, not a surprise to see Louisville as 21-point underdog. So here's what I want to say when it comes to just, where we are. And this is not a big picture conversation as far as like the future of the program, at least not yet. But I'm now in the last 3 games I now believe that this team, they're not going to have a good record. They're not going to do anything of note this year, but they're gonna win some ACC games. I don't know how many, but they'll win some. And I thought about saying they'll steal some, and maybe that would be actually the better way to describe it, because by all accounts, right now we know Louisville played better against NC State. They fought, which was refreshing to see. They got a big win last week against Miami, the first real win for Kenny Payne that actually has, some value. So, with that, I now think in the last 3 games, they're showing that they do have the ability to beat some of these bad teams. And look, I know they're a bad team and they can lose to anybody. Trust me. I'm not about to predict that they start reeling off win after win, but when they play, teams like Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, even if they have Virginia Tech at home, I think that's a game they can win. Boston College, Clemson, who somehow is 2-4 in the league. Those are games that they, I don't predict that they win really any of them, but it wouldn't shock me at all if they win 2 of those, 3 of those against those caliber opponents. And at that point, it's better than losing, but what does it mean, right? Like, I do feel like we have hit and this is, I don't really think this is anybody's fault. This is just a product of the situation to where, you're watching them, you can tell that they do put segments together where you wouldn't say to yourself, wow, this team is good, but that it's better than what we have experienced for a good chunk of the Kenny Payne era. And that's not me telling you that, hey, everything's okay, but it's better than, I guess, getting your ass kicked every night. And technically they did tonight, but because of how bad they've been throughout the year and Carolina playing like one of the best teams in the country, it's that awkward spot that we're not familiar with as Louisville fans to where, you don't feel good. It's not like a good thing happened tonight, but I know I can't be the only one sitting here thinking, well, they didn't get beat as bad as I thought they would. And that's a weird place to be, because I think we just have it internally as Louisville basketball fans to know that, like, that doesn't mean anything. There's no value in that. But again, it's just better than what we've gone through. And it's left me in an awkward spot because, when they put that second half run together, I mean, it was nice to see them do that, right? They made shots and they could have easily mailed it in and they didn't. So one thing that always irritated me in the offseason when we talked about Louisville in year 2 with Kenny Payne was the whole progress. They're going to be better, because it really, irritated the hell out of me because when you win 4 games, you damn right you better be better. But that's not the bar. That's not what we're doing here. At least that's not what I'm doing as a fan. I'm just a fan like anybody else, right? My thoughts, my belief when it comes to Louisville basketball moving forward is not something that is going to come into consideration when they make a decision. But they decided to keep Kenny Payne in a time where we thought maybe he could lose his job. In fact, let's be real. There was a time where I think everybody just assumed there's no scenario he survives the rest of the season. Well, now looks like he's going to. I can't see a scenario where he doesn't. They're playing better basketball than what they've done before, but they're still not going to come to any type of a finish that will give you any real belief that Louisville is on pace and they're headed they're going at a high rate of speed, approaching where the standard is and should always be. And that's just what sucks about all this, because they could be substantially better next year, right? Let's say they end up winning. What was it the last time we looked at it here on Ken Palm? Let me pull up Ken Palm here, because what I like about Ken Palm, he's not always right. In fact, he's having a pretty rough year, if we're being honest. But he'll give you a projected record of every team based off his formula. And it's not a perfect science, but it's usually pretty close. But he has Louisville winning 9 games this year. And let's just say that's what they end up winning. I don't know if they'll end up getting there, but let's say they win 9 games. And then next year they decided to bring him back, which I don't believe that will happen, but let's just say it did. They could win 18, and they would still be so far from what Louisville strives to be. And in year 3, can you say, hey, getting better brick by brick? Because that's not the reality. That's not the world that college basketball is anymore. And what I mean by that is Louisville shouldn't be a pro. There's no more rebuild the way the rebuild used to, what rebuilds used to look like back in the day for programs like Louisville, when you have the resources that a program like Louisville has and you get a coach. I mean, you can flip it quickly. And I don't mean go from, 9 wins potentially to hiring a coach next year and then going on to, maybe make a deep run in the tournament. I mean, it's possible, but that's not what I mean when I say you can get back to relevance. I mean, where you clearly know you're going to be in play for a spot on the tournament. And I think that's like, as bad as Kenny Payne has been, whoever they do hire, I mean, it all depends on sort of what he does in the offseason to put together a team to get off to a good start. And you would think that that's going to be the first task. And any coach who's interested in this job is going to know I got to come in and I got to get to work in the portal. I got to figure out who on this team I want to stick around. I got to try to maybe bring some freshmen in, maybe some guys that have committed to me where I was coaching before, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think we're going to be out of line to say, hey, it's Louisville. You got the resources. It's a new world now with the portal and NIL. So go fight for a tournament spot. I don't think that's unfair. And the reality is this, that probably should have been the standard for Kenny. I mean, not to say that if he missed the tournament that it would mean he's a failure, but the dude won 4 games, and that's just completely something that nobody ever thought would happen. So again, we'll let you guys react, but they're going to win games this year. I don't know how many. I would say right now they have a total of 6 wins. I wouldn't be shocked if they get to 13. And if they do, it'll be better than 4. But anybody trying to sell that as, okay, hey, it's working out, let's keep this going, it would be very sad. It would devastate me. I tried not to think about it because it would make me cry myself to sleep knowing that the folks at U of L who have the decision-making power are just deciding to keep this going on, knowing that a quick change, a quick hire, and you could instantly put some life back in this program. So I'm still of the belief that they will make a change, but only time will tell. Fans aren't the ones making the decision. I think their voice should matter, and I think it does to the university. But at the end of the day, action from them is really going to be the only thing that confirms that this, in fact, will end at the end of the year. So there you go. All right, 502-571-7900 is the number if you guys would like to jump in and join us on the phone lines. Again, 502-653-0790. That's the text line. We've already got some people here on our comments here. This is from Justin, who, are we allowed to cry? You can cry, Justin, if you want. I'm not going to stop you. Maybe that sometimes a good cry helps. I don't think it would be good for me to cry on this show, but I feel like a lot of times when you've heard me talking about Louisville basketball and you're trying to visualize what I look like, which, by the way, you can see me now because we have the live stream going, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and all that. But I'm sure when you're just trying to visualize what I look like as I'm talking Louisville basketball, you probably do see tears running down my face. All right, let's see here again. 502-571-7900 571-7900 is the number if you want to join us. Let's go to Cody. Cody, what's happening tonight? It's a late night. Let's get weird, brother.
Hey, what's happening, Nick, man? Like you said, man, I mean, I see some effort out there. More importantly for myself, they've been covering the spread. That's 3 games in a row they've covered the spread. They won the game outright against Miami and then covered the spread in the other 2 as well. So if they're not winning games, at least we can make a little bit of money betting on them, Nick, man. But what are the odds, though, that Jalen Withers gets a double-double in this game after he just does nothing the whole time he's here? And then I don't know how, and somehow is still able to transfer to a blue blood like North Carolina and then goes out there,
he had a great
double-double on it. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him. He had a great night. Shot 80% from the field and had a double-double, 15 and 10, I think it was. And I don't know how R.J. Davis is still in college. He's been in North Carolina for about 12 years, him and Baycott both, Nick. But like you said, I think they get to maybe 11, 12, 13 wins, something like that. I mean, the team's not very good, but over the last couple games, we've seen some effort. You know, that's really the most you can ask out of these guys. Looks like some of them have given up. And Nick, why in God's name does Hersey Miller and Janata Ozadovich start for this team?
It's got to be Cody, and I appreciate the call, man. Good to hear from your brother. Stay safe tonight. I would say this. I mean, I think Kenny had said that it was like a reward for Hersey to get the starting nod. And I do know that they like bringing Tyler off the bench because it you don't have a whole lot of power, firepower coming from your bench. And he's somebody that is clearly a capable starter. But if you can get the game started and it's within reach and you're competing early, I think timing is there to put Tyler in to do his thing. And what I mean by that is he's a guy that's going to make some things happen. He's going to turn the ball over. He's going to be out of control at times. But he really I could see him making improvements in that area. Now tonight, some silly turnovers, that kind of stuff. But, who do you think should start over, Jovanovic? Would it be Caleb Glenn? I wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean, there's no nice way to say it, but Hershey's a walk-on, so that's a different conversation. Danilo Jovanovic, the fact that he's on this roster and he's a scholarship player, and this is not a personal shot. I don't know him at all, but I mean, he's a prime example of somebody that you look at from a personnel standpoint as far as ability that we've seen, and you think, okay, I guess it makes sense that this is the caliber player that we have, just given where we are. I was happy for Jalen Withers, man. Cody mentioned how Jalen Withers had never done anything during his time at Louisville, and that's not really true. I mean, Jalen Withers was a guy that, and it's so easy to forget this because the year where COVID appeared and the tournament didn't happen, that's a year that a lot of people just forget. And I get it. I kind of do as well. I would for sure. Here's what happens. I forget what college basketball looked like. I don't forget that team because that team was good. That team had a chance to make a deep run, and we'll never know what would have happened. But I love that team so much because, again, a lot of those guys, that's personnel that Chris inherited that, Dwayne Sutton walk-on. Ryan McMahon was your returning leading scorer. A lot of sophomores on that team, guys like Jordan and Malik Williams and Darius Perry, those guys, yeah, they were certainly talented, and those are guys that Mac inherited, but they didn't play the year before. So the 2020 team was a special group, and I hate that we'll never know what would have happened. But Jalen redshirted on that team. The year after that, I think the COVID year, meaning when we played college basketball during the COVID season, I feel like that's also just a big blur because it didn't seem real. Louisville played, 15 games that year because of how many COVID stoppages there were for either them or an opponent. But that year, Jalen was all ACC freshman team. And I thought he was, I embarrass myself a lot on this platform from time to time. This may embarrass me even more, but I have no problem doing it. The year that Louisville was heading into the 2022 season, which essentially was Max last year, right? Yeah, Max last year. I voted Jalen Withers preseason All-ACC first team, and I felt justified in doing it because he had a really good freshman year, and you felt like he was only going to get better. And then from then on, he was never as good at Louisville as he was in that first year, and I don't know what changed. I'm not sure what had happened, but, I always liked Jalen. I think he's a good kid. He's a grown man now. He's a fifth-year senior, but, let me go back and look at his numbers because, again, as a freshman, redshirt freshman, I should say. Again, there's that damn autoplay ad. John, can you hear it coming through my damn laptop?
It's actually not as bad.
I'm just saying damn, so I can, emphasize how much it pisses me off.
It's not nearly as bad as how
because
it was today in the studio.
because I'm not connected to it, but still, it's just annoying. But anyways, when Jalen was a redshirt freshman in his first year, the COVID year, he played 25 minutes a game. He averaged 10 points, 7.7 rebounds, and shot it 55% from the floor. I mean, that's a great freshman stat line, and he never really. I mean, he hasn't had the same number since. I mean, honestly, he played here for 3 years. He's at Carolina now, fifth-year guy because he redshirted. His best numbers were that year, and he did it against good teams too. By the way, like they went on the road to play like Duke that year and beat them. Carlik Jones, of course, was the star of that team, but Jalen was a big factor, and I'm sure he's content with the role he gets. He doesn't play a lot of minutes. He hadn't played a lot of minutes this year, but tonight they let him play a lot of minutes because they could, and they knew he was going up against his former team, and he balled out. He had a big night. He did. So, it's not like I feel like Louisville would be in a much different situation if in fact he would have stayed at Louisville. And this is not even a shot at Kenny. This is just the reality of the situation when it comes to anybody that has left in the last couple of years. You can't blame them because, I mean, it's not personal probably for them. They just realize, hey, this isn't a good situation. I now have the ability to get out. So I'm going to do that. All right, let's go to the comments. I got a text line I'm going to get to in just a moment. We got a lot of comments coming in on the live stream. This is from Grant, who says, Nick, you need to drink that Busch Light. Yeah, I won't, but maybe after the show. I mean, I did have a couple of beers during the game, but I'm a professional. I can't be drinking on the job. So I guess I just admitted that I drank before the job, which probably isn't a good look anyway. But hey, I'm at my house. I'm not driving anywhere. I had a couple of beers. So yeah, I'm not going to do that. But again, maybe afterwards. This is from Thomas. He says the defense is non-existent. The offense is better, but the defense is trash. There's talent here. Should be much better than 6-11. I couldn't agree with you more, Thomas. Could not agree with you more. That's been when I watch this team in their good stretches of play, I no longer ask myself, how do they take this and let this be the consistent thing we see now? And I mean offensive mostly because they're not very good defensively, and that's been a huge issue. We had C.L. Brown on earlier today, and he pointed something out that I believe is probably rather obvious, but it doesn't get mentioned enough. When you look at how bad they are defensively, it's not their inability. It's not that they don't have dudes who actually can physically get down and guard somebody. They just don't have, like Louisville basketball, I'm not sure what their identity is from top to bottom, but in their DNA, it's not, hey, we got to guard and we got to defend and we're going to take anybody scoring on us. We're going to take that personally. That's just not how the program is run. And I think it all speaks to how they prepare, how they practice. I mean, I know early on, there were people going to practice, former players, and they weren't acting like Louisville was about to win the national championship, but they would talk up the practices. And I got to be honest with you, I've talked to enough people to know that that's a lie. And it's not just because former players are comparing practices to Rick Pitino, because that's a different situation. But I mean, they don't have a whole lot of intensity, and I think you see that from time to time. There's not a lot of fire from this staff. There's not a lot of fire from this team. I think when they go on these runs and they get momentum, it's a self-starting thing, So yeah, their defense is bad, and if they are going to win any games the rest of the way, which I think they can, it'll be because their offense does it. It won't be because they've become this really good defensive team. This is from I don't know where this one came from as far as which platform. It's not. It just says
Twitter, it looks like, or X.
13 wins. We'll be lucky to get 10. Yeah, did I say 13 wins?
You said that was probably the max that they could get.
Yeah, because now, if they have 6, and if I said 13, then I'm talking out of my rear end. If they get to, here's what's crazy though. If they got to 13, would it change anything? I mean, I don't think it would. Like, there can't be, well, I don't know. I need to back up because I get to speaking from my perspective, which is all I can do. And I never wanted to make it out as if I'm acting as if everybody is on the same page as me, because everybody has their own opinion. Fan the way you want to fan. But is there anybody that's like fallen for this team? Meaning like you feel a real close attachment because they've given you joy or they've had some crazy moments. Like, I feel bad for the guys from time to time, but like, even if they got to 13 wins, I just have a hard time thinking that there would be fans out there acting as if, hey, they've had a change of heart. They're now convinced that we should keep doing this. But again, I'm sure people are. I mean, I'm sure that would happen to some. And, you're entitled to your opinion. All right. This text says, Nick, when it comes to Trey White, all we heard, this is, by the way, it's a text line thing. All we heard all off season was that he was the most talented player. And I got to be honest with you, I think he hurts the team every second he's on the floor. I don't agree that he hurts the team every second he's on the floor, but he's just not in sync with anybody. And I don't know if his absence made the team better, but they were able to have more identified roles when he wasn't out there, when he was injured. And he's talented. He can do some things. He's athletic, but he just doesn't, to me, he's learning how to play. I don't know a lot about his time at USC other than he did produce for them and was an all Pac-12 freshman. But, he's just kind of out there. I don't want to say he's selfish because that's not what I mean. And it may sound like it when I say this, but he's just kind of out there in his own world, right? Like he's kind of doing his own thing. And it, when you've got a guy like Caleb Glenn who's giving you minutes and he knows what he's out there to do, bring physicality, keep the motor running, and, work his ass off. And he does that. He's probably not at this point close to being capable of doing offensively what Trey White can do. But you need guys that are doing that specific role because then again, there are identified roles. And I think when Louisville played better basketball against Miami, they were shorthanded, didn't have a lot of depth, 7 scholarship players in that game. And even against NC State, although I guess Trey White did come back. So I guess 8 scholarship players, but either way, when it comes to the minute distribution, you had a thinner team, but everybody kind of seemed to have an identified role. None of them seem to be, great defensively, but, offensively, you don't have a guy like Caleb Glenn or Jovanovic at times. And, even Hercy Miller, when he's out there, he's not hunting shots. If he's out there and he's just not hurting you and he's playing his role and letting the core of this team, Mike James, Brandon Huntley-Hatfield, and then Sky Clark and Tyler Johnson, I mean, you won't be a great team, but I think you'll have your better results if that is how it's, it's running. All right. Let's see here. This, let's see. This is from Terrence Gibbs, who says, it's sad how we can play there and be good. Sad. So it's coaching. That's what it is, man. Terrence, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Let me read that again. It's sad how we can play there and be good. Sad. So it's coaching. That's what it is. I mean, I do think coaching is a huge problem, but as far as your comment, I don't know for sure as far as what that,
I think he's talking about Jalen Withers being good at North Carolina and not being out at Louisville.
Got it. Yeah. That's one of the things I got to get better at. Thank you, John, because sometimes the comments come in and I'm just thinking they came in like right at that moment and you could be commenting on something that I don't see until later. So thank you. That does make it make more sense. And Terrence, I'm sorry for just assuming you were talking nonsense. But when I see them have the good stretches of play, I think to myself, why can't they bottle that up and develop that to be the identity? And that's what we get 90% of the time. And I think it's because it's, the players have to be accountable as well. There's no doubt about that. They need to, they need to be better at times. And I'm sure there are many examples throughout the whole season where you can find guys that maybe you feel like they didn't give max effort. They weren't locked in. Like they make mistakes. They are certainly a huge part of it. But I think it starts at the top, right? I mean, when it comes to teams I watch out there, including teams I watch that have a coach that I'd love to potentially take over at Louisville maybe. And, I'm not saying again that I think Jerome Tang should absolutely be the guy, but if they were to pursue him and that's the direction they would go, if the job opens up, I'm all in. I think I love everything about Jerome Tang, and his team is a reflection of him. And I actually think at times Louisville is a reflection of their coach, and it's not good. I mean, it's not a personal shot, but it is part of your personality. You can't be fake. You got to be who you are. And I think Kenny is at least genuine. Like I don't think he's out there being anything other than who he is, but it just, man, when you lose like he does, as far as how many times it happens and you're the same, I mean, you smile and you just don't seem bothered by it. I mean, guess maybe he's numb to it like we are. So maybe that's why maybe that's why he's like that. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody realistically, and maybe some would, and this may be an invitation for somebody to call in late at night and troll, which by the way, it's late. Do whatever you, I mean, we can take this wherever you guys want to go when it comes to, the direction of a late night postgame show. But when it comes to anybody that is viewing this team from a fan's perspective or just objectively, nobody would accuse this team of being well coached. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And when you know that, and it's right in front of you, and it's really undisputable, and your results are what they are, again, that's where I think you will need to pull the plug at the end of the year. But will you do it? I don't know. Again, only time will tell. All right, let's get to our first break here. We're going to get to more of your phone calls if you want to jump in and join us. 502-571-7900. Again, phone lines are open. And if you're watching on the stream, keep the comments coming. We'll certainly get to as many of those as we can and keep this thing rolling along. And I will make sure we spend a little bit of time on the good football news that keeps coming in, because that's what keeps us sane, right? Every day we have to remind ourselves of where we are with basketball. We can look to Jeff Brom coming off a 10-win season, an ACC championship game appearance, and he's killing it in the transfer portal. So usually you wouldn't want to talk about football on a basketball postgame show, but I think those listening would understand. All right, again, it is Louisville Basketball Postgame Show here on Sports Talk 790. Stick with us.
Broadcast We know what you want. That's why we serve them up. Sports Talk 790.
All out there in no man's land, it's the safest place to be. Sanctuary never comes.
All right, it is the Louisville basketball postgame show here on a Wednesday evening, 11:45 here, a late night for us, and we appreciate you hanging out. Coffee and Company, that's the name of my show, but I'm going to act like I didn't just slip up and say the wrong name of the show. I was just going to plug my show.
We can just promo tomorrow's show.
I'm just promoting the show. Yeah, join us tomorrow from 3 to 6. In fact, join us every day right here from 3 to 6 for Coffee and Company. All right, I still care about Louisville basketball. I still have the deep-rooted emotional investment that no matter how numb I feel at times, some things are said, some things happen that remind me how much I care. And that has just happened during this commercial break as I have seen one of Kenny Payne's post-game comments. This is from Tyler Griever of WDRB. I'll read directly what he tweeted. Kenny Payne was asked about the comparison of his situation to Hubert Davis taking over jobs at their alma mater with no previous head coaching experience. He was asked how long he thinks it should take to get things going. Quote from Kenny in the response. This is Kenny's answer. Inheriting what I inherited, this is really year one for me, end quote. I don't know if you guys have anything left to like get angry about that because that's nonsense. It's a lie. I do think I chose some decent GIF usage on that tweet because I did the George Costanza. It's not a lie if you believe it, because that's how Kenny's operating. Kenny doesn't believe that there's anything that has happened since he got here with the struggles, the failure, the embarrassment. He does not, to his core, think that he is remotely responsible for that. The only time he ever started to at least lightly kind of half-ass mention it's everybody's fault, like all of us, was whenever the noise was as loud as it's ever been as far as him losing his job. And for those of you that, and there aren't many of you left, that still want to try to stress that Kenny Payne is, he deserves time and it would be unfair, like all that, whatever nonsense you want to try to spew, that this is all part of some process. I mean, here's where you're screwed. Here's where you probably haven't given it enough thought to really consider what you're saying because you got the blinders on. You are so dead set that Kenny's the guy and it's going to work out that you've turned yourself into a Kenny Payne groupie rather than being an objective mind or a Louisville fan. Because one, that's a lie. Kenny Payne did not inherit anything that would result in a 4-win team last year. Not even close. And hey, this team, it's your team, dude, and they suck. I mean, I hate to be so blunt. That's mean, but like, whose fault is that? I mean, this is essentially the guy saying, yeah, but it's year one. So like, who cares? It's year one. Well, it's not. It's year two, actually. But he believes that. So again, where those that say he's going to figure it out, he's getting it, give him time. How can Kenny Payne figure it out, get better, get it rolling when he doesn't believe he's done a damn thing wrong at all? Like, what's he working on? He doesn't think he needs to work on anything. He's of the belief this is all the player's fault or somebody else's fault that was here 2 years ago. I mean, it's nonsense. And to be honest, he's just answering questions. So, like, he's not heading to the podium with an agenda, with a mindset that's like, I'm going to tell them, they're lucky to have me. I don't know if he believes that, but he's asked questions and he's giving honest answers. And I don't think he's not doing it. I just think he believes that. Like Kenny Payne, again, it's not a lie if you believe it. One of my favorite quotes ever from Seinfeld. And, it is true. If he believes that this is all everybody else's fault. So therefore, in his mind, that's just the way it is. And I do believe he doesn't listen to anything. I don't think he has a true feel for the way he comes off. And I know people that have at least a little bit of access to him, at least a little bit of, involvement in the program. They've told me he doesn't listen to anybody. He could really help himself just as far as perception. I mean, you got to win. And we're lucky that the wins are so not there that, when even if he was doing all the right things, saying all the right things, it really wouldn't matter because they're losing so bad. I mean, again, for those just now joining us, welcome in. Late night. Appreciate you. Kenny Payne asked about Hubert Davis in his situation, how similar they are, because, of course, they are similar in this regard. They both took over at their alma mater, and they were both longtime assistant coaches. And, they had no coaching experience as far as a head coach when they got the job. Well, Hubert Davis clearly has done more in a month at Carolina than Kenny's done in 2 years. And that may still be the case when it's all said and done. So, again, it's not like Kenny's bringing it up. He was asked the question by the media, and this was his answer. Inheriting what I inherited, this is really year one for me. And by the way, one of the dudes you inherited that led the ACC in three-point field goal percentage last year, in ACC games, I should say, Jalen Withers, that dude you inherited that you felt like, probably should move on because you're bringing in reinforcements. Yeah, that guy gave you a double-double tonight and did it pretty effortlessly. Didn't even play a ton of minutes and did it. So, I mean, it is true. I mean, this was my fear. And my ultimate fear is that what he says about inheriting things, a mess, and this all being a part of some process, I'm scared to death that that's what Josh Hurt thinks. And that's what the administration thinks. And when I say the administration, I don't want to say the board, because I don't want to act as if, that'll get people thinking it's all politically driven and this board was put together by Matt Bevin to bring U of L down. And I don't want to get into that tinfoil hat nonsense because it's just, I just don't want to go there. But that is essentially, the decision makers, right? Influential people on the board, the president, and of course, Josh Hurd. You would think he'd be able to kind of run this thing and then take whatever he wants to do to the proper people to sign off on in these board meetings. And I'm hoping that he does, but I don't know that he doesn't feel the same way that Kenny does. I don't know that. I've not had any, and I'm not even just saying that because he kept him around, but Josh did an interview with Eric Crawford of WDRB the day that we found out that Kenny was going to be leading the program heading into the new calendar year. That's how it was described. And I listened to it, and it didn't give me any indication that he is going to make a move or that he's not, right? It wasn't like he made it seem as if there's not going to be a change made at the end of the year. And he'd be a fool to indicate that when there's still so much basketball to be played, regardless of how bad of a spot they were in. But, I'll be open with you guys, right? I'm opening up to you and letting you know I'm scared to death that the reason Kenny operates the way he does, sees the situation the way he does, is because that's just the mindset from his boss. I would hope that's not the case, because I just can't imagine how anybody that knows anything about Louisville basketball or really knows anything about basketball would see this and assume this was a part of some process and that this was just bound to happen, because that's not the case. So I'm going to not dwell on it, because, again, only time will tell when it comes to will they do the right thing, and that is to move on from Kenny Payne and get us a competent coach in here that will not play the victim, that will be pissed off after he loses, and will let the fans know if the team lets him down, and let them know, hey, we're going to fight our ass off for you guys. We know how much your support, you know what I mean? Like things that a coach would say, because they would feel so fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to coach at Louisville. And this is a guy who should know it better than anybody. He played here, won a national championship, and Kenny carries himself as if we should all be fortunate that he's here, and that we should all be thanking him because he came here and inherited some big mess, which, again, is just a lot. It's just not true. And you guys know, at least I think I know Chris Mack, and I don't say that to like brag, but like I still talk to Coach Mack every now and then, and he wouldn't do it because he just wouldn't. But if I was him, at some point, I would chirp up here and say, look, enough. I'm not going to keep taking strays here, because objectively, the leading reporter, the leading insider, if you will, for college basketball, Jeff Goodman, just named Kenny Payne the worst college basketball hire since 2000. And that's a pretty fair assessment, if we're being honest. And yet Kenny Payne, sits in that and still blames the previous regime for it. And anybody with a brain knows that's nonsense. But at some point, like, somebody's got to tell him, look, if you feel that way, that's fine. But you look like a clown when you continue to not be able to lead this program in the way that it needs to be led. And you blame it on dudes who've been gone for 2.5 years. Like, what? It makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. All right. Anyways, let's go back to the comments here. Some good stuff coming in. This is from looks like Revert on Twitter. He says, Nick, I dig the basement setup. I appreciate you. This is from John Michael, who says, yeah, that comment is crap. Me and you could have coached this team last year and won more than 4 games. I don't know if we would have or could have, but I'll tell you this. It was so bad that when you say that, like, it's not, it's not, like, you start to think, like, you know what? Like, I probably could have reeled off 4 wins. I couldn't have done much worse. This is from somebody on Twitter here named Gil Boldberg. Well played. It's a play on the name Bill Goldberg, which now I'm getting sidetracked here. John, do you know who Bill Goldberg is?
I would guess he was some sort of reporter. Am I an idiot?
No, you're not an idiot.
I'll take the fall if I'm wrong.
Dude, you're wrong, but you are 25 years old. You have every right to not know who Bill Goldberg
Anybody
is.
with the last name Goldberg,
Bill Goldberg
was destined to be a reporter.
Bill Goldberg was a professional wrestler in the added. Well, he was in WCW, but anyways, that's a play on the name here. But he says Kenny Payne doesn't have the mental toughness to endure the expectations and pressure of this program. Well said. And by the way, Bill Goldberg didn't say that. Gil Boldberg on social media said that. Let's see. This is from SC Pick. He is a lovable loser. Worst type of coach you could have. Let's see here. I got to be careful because I don't want to put something on the screen and start reading it and then realize I may have committed FCC violations. Although, there's some riffraff on the comments here, but for the most part, people are being well behaved. But yeah, for those just joining us, Louisville did lose once again tonight. Not a surprise, and they lost by nearly 20 points. They weren't, they weren't good tonight. But it is just a sad reality that I think a lot of folks are thinking, yeah, they lost by 16 points, but they didn't get beat as bad as I thought they would, and that's not a moral victory. That's not anybody that I've seen, at least, claiming that things are good. But because of how bad it's been, this is just it's such a unusual situation to be in. And I don't even know who you'd compare it. Like, is there a fan base that has had to go from and look, I do want to be fair. It's not as if Kenny came here and Louisville was fresh off a bunch of Final Four runs, but it's more so just about how bad that it's gotten. But I know I can't be alone. We need some kind of, maybe this is like kind of the group therapy session here, but there's got to be many of you listening that have been in the same shoes I have, where you do see the good stretch of play and you feel yourself getting excited. That emotion's there. And then you think, like, wait a second, what am I doing? I know this guy can't be the future of the pro. I know this isn't going to work. Why am I happy? And it's weird. You shouldn't feel bad about watching your team do something that makes you happy because they're playing better. But any evaluation from a positive perspective here, I don't want to say it's worthless, but it's worthless because Kenny's bar is so low based off of how bad he's been that he, again, could make massive improvement. And what would it mean? It would mean that maybe they're getting better, but like they probably need that kind of trajectory for 4 or 5 years running to where you're feeling like you actually are going to head to the tournament and maybe win a game or two. So, all right, let's get our last break out of the way. We'll come back and get to more of your calls, more of your comments, and put the finishing touches on this thing. I already feel like I'm going down that path, John. And that's what happens, right? Kenny says something stupid, and I just get to
It's always the press conference, isn't it?
Yeah, Kenny says something stupid, and I just get to doing reruns, basically just saying the same stuff I've said forever. So I'll try to end on a positive note, and I will get you guys updated if you're unaware of the big football news that came in. Not yesterday, because that was big, but some big news again today. So stick with us. It is Coffee and Company. We are – I did it. It's not Coffee and Company. It's the Louisville Basketball Postgame Show on Sports Talk 790.
Listen on the This is Sports Talk 790.
Love to save you. Don't you know they love to see you smile? But these colors that you share.
Who is this?
This is Crossfade.
Crossfade. I've heard of them.
They had a few hits back in the early 2000s, and then they just kind of fell off.
Yeah, they had hits when I was like in high school, I think. And John, don't take this the wrong way, brother, but like listen to this music and I'm trying to visualize a concert and then I'm looking around in the crowd. I see you.
It's definitely me.
I see a full crowd of you. Because this is your kind of stuff here. This is your jam.
It's the dad rock.
Yeah, dad rock. And again, you're an old soul, brother. I mean,
I love it.
How old were you when these songs came out? You had to be a child.
I definitely wasn't. I
was a teenager. You had to be a young kid.
It was what my dad was listening to, but I just took it, upon myself to enjoy it, and I still listen to it to these days. And then a lot of bands similar to him. So
I love that you are a lot younger than me because it makes me cool. But I love that you're 25, 26 now.
Yes, 26.
Yeah, 26. I'm 35, about to be 36. So it's just interesting to see how because you don't oftentimes ever seem that much younger than me. But then again, like you saying you like this music, I'm thinking to myself, it probably is something that was around when you were growing up, but it was around when you were a really young
child.
kid. But you know what else is crazy? Have you ever considered how much age difference there is between me and your father? It's not that much. I mean, we're not super close in age, but we ain't that far apart. And that
actually, I think the gap may be bigger than you think.
I mean, I'm not saying like we're close in age. I'm not old enough to be your dad, but I mean, although I do feel like a father figure to you, John, which actually I kid. That'd be scary.
You're more of a mentor.
Yeah, you'd be going down the wrong path if I was your father figure. But yes, mentor, I'll take it. And I don't know what value I bring in that role, but we'll see what happens. It's been a fun ride so far. They're still letting us, go on the radio live after midnight.
That's right.
Good stuff. So again, Louisville basketball postgame show. Louisville loses 70-86 in a game that really got away from them early. They did claw back and got it within 5 after being down 20 early in the second half. And then Carolina got it back up to double digits and never turned back. Some stats here to run through before we call it a night. Your leading scorer was Sky Clark, who did snap out of his shooting slump, 4 or 5 from 3. Mike James cooled off, 3 of 10 from the floor, had 9 points in 31 minutes. He was due for an off night. And to be fair, and it makes sense, I think Carolina was clearly emphasizing doing whatever you could to kind of slow him down, and they did exactly that. Brandon Huntley-Hatfield, 28 minutes, had 15 points, of 7 of 10 from the floor and 6 rebounds. And again, I hate that it's happening in a year where it's just going to be a wash when it's all said and done. But Huntley-Hatfield went from a guy that I felt like you shouldn't play him more than 8 minutes because he gives you nothing. He doesn't have the motor running. He got dominated on the glass against Kentucky Wesleyan at times, which is just unheard of. Well, now, I don't know what changed, but he is playing really good basketball, and foul trouble was a factor tonight. But again, 15 and 6, and at times, I mean, Baycott had no answer for him. 12 points for Trey White in a game that actually on paper looks better than what I witnessed with my eyeballs. So again, Louisville, they lose once again. And I think for me, I don't want to say I think it is for anybody else, but for me, the new talking point here, which it's not necessarily something we haven't ever heard before, but Kenny Payne has indicated really at every chance he gets publicly to let people know that he inherited something in his mind. He inherited something that I guess gives him the belief that this was just bound to happen, regardless if he was Kenny Payne, the awful coach, or if he was John Wooden. But tonight he was asked about Hubert Davis and his situation being similar, which it is when it comes to just how it all played out. I mean, a little differently. Hubert never coached elsewhere, became an assistant for Roy Williams as a former player at Carolina, climbed the ladder, and he's had a lot of success compared to what Kenny's had. Although, last year, a down year, this is a big year for Carolina. They needed to be good, and they are right now. And I'd say if they continue to play well and make a deep run in the tournament, then there'll be no noise about Hubert, his job being in jeopardy. But Kenny, he said, well, considering what I inherited, this is essentially my first year. And I just sent you some sound, John. Can you see if that's playable? This is courtesy of Tyler Grieber, WDRB, who pulled this from the Microsoft Teams Teams video call that was in fact the post-game press conference. See if you can play that. I haven't heard it. I haven't even listened to it because we're live here. I just saw it, but this may be some content. This may provide some context to the quote we saw. I'm not even sure if it's exactly it, but let's see if we can play that, John.
The same thing he inherited. That's first CL. What I inherited was a broken something.
They're still broke.
And my job is to clean it up.
You are doing a bad job at that.
To answer your question, I don't really know exactly, but to me, in my world, inheriting what I inherited, this is really year one for me, because this is the first time I get to bring my players in and start the process of rebuilding a program. But that's just to me. Other people may see that differently. I don't know, but that's how I feel about it. I wish I inherited something similar to what Hubert inherited, because I think he started out slow, but as the year went on.
All right, you can stop it. Enough with the nonsense. The context was important because he did emphasize, and if you noticed, he made sure to make it quite clear he is saying in his world, his belief. He didn't say that other people see it that way. So again, he is in his own world if he believes that, and at least he's honest with us. And again, when you talk about inheriting a broken program, and then, I mean, I'm trying not to make it sound personal. How can you know that you have 10 wins in over 40 games now, and you've lost to some bum teams? Nobody's coming to games because why would they? How can you say that you inherited a broken program and not have the lowest level possible of awareness to know that like, if it's broken, then what is it now? I mean, am I crazy? Like, think about that. When you continue to say that the program was broken when you got here, it wasn't in great shape. It wasn't, but how about embracing resources instead of feeling sorry for yourself? That's what this whole, that's what the program, the whole morale, the whole vibe is. Everybody's just feeling sorry for themselves, fans included, for obvious reason, for good reason. But how about just like acting? I mean, it's so weak to even if the situation was as bad as he makes it out to be, continuing to bring it up is weak. It's what losers do. How about just saying, hey, that I have no control over that, nothing to do with it. I'm going to buckle down. We're going to work our ass off in practice and get better. And we're going to establish our brand, and we're going to get this thing turned around. And we're going to take some personal pride in doing that. I feel like that's the common way to go about it. That's not being a hard ass. That's, I think, what most people in his position would do. How many times you hear Chris Mack bring up what he walked into? And that is no closure from any of the scandal, right? I guess we did have the closure from the not the Karen Cypher, but the Katina Powell situation. But Chris coached 3.5 years here and never, or 2.5, however long it was, and never got any update. Kenny did have an offseason when he got here where there was still a lot of uncertainty, but he never coached a regular season game with any cloud over his head. And here we are. So again, when I get worked up, it's like, I just go on autopilot and start doing the same show that I've done forever, but I can't help myself. It makes me feel alive knowing that I still care, because I shouldn't be surprised when he says these things. I feel like I'm numb to it, but it still gets me worked up, which is all for nothing. But at least it reminds me that I'm alive and I do care still.
I got to say, this also kind of further proves that it seems like the evidence is there that he never really wanted this job in the first place. And he had the excuse that he made up his mind already that this was a bad thing to inherit. Then why did he take the job?
Yeah. And look, I'm sure you can find some quotes here and there where, he mentions like how much he loves Louisville, but I've never heard or seen anything that shows him doing any type of like, first of all, I cannot believe I get this opportunity. He's in his mind believed that we should it's insanity, but I do believe that is the situation, John. You're right. I think that he looked at this, didn't want to do it, was convinced by some folks to do it, so he decided to. And I've never really felt like he believed Louisville would be where they belong, because in his mind, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'll come here and just sit around and sit in this mess because, you're welcome. I mean, it sounds, the more we talk about it, the more I just feel like, it's insanity. But I do think that's when all you can do is take his action, his words, his demeanor. I think what I just described is exactly what those things are. And again, my fear, and it's just me being honest with you, my fear is that the administration feels the same way. And I have no reason to believe that, but I also have no reason to believe for sure that they see it the way everybody else does. So now we wait. And that's not a shot at Josh. I'm just telling you I don't know. And at this point, he would have him coming out at this point now and giving us any kind of an update on what he thinks and how he feels about things, it'd be appreciated, but it wouldn't be, it wouldn't change anything. And honestly, it wouldn't be something I'd feel like, thank you, because I think the time to step up and be a leader and at least be out there when there's nothing great to say, but you got to say something because, again, it's the job. But anyways, real quick, the latest update from the portal, another Ole Miss transfer portal commitment has flipped to Louisville this time. It is defensive back Tavion Nicholson, who, again, played at Illinois, was a part of Illinois' really good defense in 2022. In fact, they led the country in pass efficiency defense and led an interception. So, good addition here. And again, another, I don't know what Jeff Brom I don't know why he decided to just start taking all Lane Kiffin's players, but he's doing exactly that. That's at least two in the last 2 days that have flipped from Ole Miss to Louisville. So there's some good news to end the evening with. All right, we are out of here. Everybody have a good night, morning. It's late. Tomorrow, 3 o'clock, right here on Sports Talk 790. Also live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and all that stuff. So have a good night, everybody. Take care.